Hey everyone, I'm super excited to be back with you this Tuesday at 5 p.m. to talk about the importance of reading books. And before I begin talking, let's give it 10-15 seconds and let some people log in so that we can have a more meaningful conversation here. So I'll just wait for 15 seconds, but in the meantime, if you're logging in, please do say hello to me so I can say a hi back. And it's always nice to see people coming on because it's exciting to talk to people on the other side. And hi Ankit, good to see you, that's awesome. Hi Surendra, lovely to see you too. Oh wow, we have quite a few, but why don't you guys drop me a hello. Hi Veer, good to see you. Hi Atul, lovely to see you. We have a lot of people logging in to talk about books. That's awesome. That's really awesome. Hi Kuldeep. Super. Since we already have a great audience, I think it's important that we begin talking about the subject. And I'm sure when you see my qualification and it says author, and then I'm going to be talking about importance of books, one would anticipate that I was always about reading books. I always wanted to write a book, or that I at least read a lot of books myself. But let me tell you, very honestly, up until 2011, I never read a single book other than my academic books. For me, books were all about, reading for exams, passing out, and, just getting good grades, and then locking the book up forever and never returning to it. So if you're one of those who doesn't like reading, all I can say is welcome to the gang. I was one of those myself. So, and it's, what I want to share with you is, how and when I started reading and, what it did for me. And therefore, eventually, how did I become an author myself? And, so all of that. And to begin with, how many of you love to read books, or how many of you don't actually read books? I mean, would you like to say hello and just say that, whether you are a reader or you're not a reader, anything on that front? Anybody would like to share? As I said, up until 2011, I had not read a single book other than my academic books because I didn't believe in reading books at all. Because for me, when I graduated after my master's in 1998, I was very clear that bas ho gaya abhi, now no more books for me, and I'll never ever pick up a book. But interestingly, in 2011, I was for the very first time, introduced to self-help books, or books on leadership and on management, or understanding yourself, and so on and so forth. And I was told that if you really want to be successful in life, you got to read a lot of books yourself, and that's the only way it happens. But I was so skeptical. I was like, no, I don't want to read any more books. I'm done with it in school and college. This time it's not for me. But eventually, they said, no, give it a shot. If you don't like reading a lot of material, maybe you can just read 5 to 10 pages a day. And I started reading some of the really nice self-help books like Personality Plus. I think that was the first one I got started with. Then Magic of Thinking Big, 5 Love Languages. And, some of these were my early books when I started reading or getting back to reading. And I got, that was also the time when I was fighting clinical depression. And, I somehow found a lot of solace and a lot of peace in the books, and I started becoming addicted to reading. And because it's just that I was not reading the books, it's not that I was not good at reading the books. So when I realized that it's actually working for me, I started reading a lot of books. In fact, there was a whole year in 2012, I remember I read almost a book a day, and that was the year when I completed almost 300 books. So if you see behind me is my mini library. That's only 1/4 of the library that I have at home, which is on my books on self-help, on management, on leadership, you name it. I'm not so much of a fiction reader. I know there's a whole lot of audience out there who loves reading fiction, but I'm the more of the movie kinds. Like, I like to see visuals. I'm more, I want to see the book as a movie rather than read the book. So that works for me better as far as fiction is concerned. But having said that, let's come to the topic and talk about, why exactly books really work. One of the things I realized when I started reading is that, books can give you insights into other people's mindsets. And I think that is so wonderful. Jim Rohn says that you're at best, the average of the 5 best friends you hang around with most. So, whatever your 5 closest people that you spend most of your time with, you are an average of that. Now, it means in terms of income, and it also means in terms of your mindset. So for me, it was very interesting because not always the people you hang around with are helping you grow as a person, but the books and the kind of mentors you can get through the books. Like, I read almost 70 out of the 84 books that John Maxwell wrote on leadership, and I think it's had such a profound effect on the way I think about business, the way I think about leadership, the way I think about dealing with people, or building my own business, or the way I think about teamwork. And it has really, really helped me. And it's like, mentoring with John directly through his books. And of course, it inspired me eventually to go and actually study with him directly in America, and actually make him my real-time mentor. So so it gives you insight into people's mindset. You can make the 5 best, your favorite authors, millionaires, billionaires, your best friends by reading a lot of their material. Get a insight into their ideas, their mindsets, their experience, their advice. I'll give you an example. Like, for example, the book that I've written, The Queen of the Comeback, it has stories and interviews from some of the greatest of the greats. It's got story of Narayan Murthy talking about why and how he built Infosys, what were the challenges they had, what kind of tough decisions they had to make to keep it going, to create it to be what it is today. It's inspiring because, when you read interviews like that, it can be so good for you because you get so much insight into life, into business, into the mindset that goes behind creating large, successful organizations. When you read the interview of film director Anurag Kashyap, you get an insight into what exactly it takes to make it big in Bollywood, and what kind of struggles one can expect. So there's so much to learn, so much advice and so much experience being shared through the books. If you read Kanika Tekriwal's story, she fought cancer, and she deals with she shares her experience of what it was like, being diagnosed with cancer at a very, very young age, and then fighting it out, and then creating her company called Jet Set Go, which is basically the Uber of the skies, and she deals with charter planes. And of course, Patricia Narayan, another great lady, who fought marital abuse and started her own business by selling coffee on Marina Beach in Chennai for 50 paisa. And today she runs, she's got 14 restaurants, so to say, a chain of restaurants in Chennai. So a lot of insight and into the experience, into the advice of these people. Dr. Velumani of Thyrocare, coming from an absolutely poor family where he did not have even electricity in the house, and they didn't have enough clothes to wear. They always wore either a shirt, they didn't have even full clothing to wear. And today he's the he's the man behind Thyrocare, and what a beautiful subscription they went for a couple of years ago. And him sharing his experiences of the struggles he had, coming from a village boy, being a village boy and becoming who he is today. So literally a book can give you a whole view into a person's mind, into their world, into their experience. It can help you transport and get those experiences for yourself while you're reading the books. The second thing is that, reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body. So, we exercise the body because we want to remain vital, we want to remain active, and we exercise the mind by reading books because we want our mind to be alert. In fact, research shows that, reading books make you smarter. So, it delays the onset of dementia or Alzheimer's if somebody has the gene for it, So it really works because it keeps you active in your head. It increases the blood circulation in your brain. Of course, it's a brilliant relaxation technique. As I mentioned, that when I started reading the books, that was a time when I was dealing with a lot of stress and depression, and it really helped me because every time I would read a few pages, like my whole focus would go into the book and I would just forget about anything else that was going on in life, and it really, really worked beautifully for me. The other thing it can do is it's the knowledge you gain from the book. You may lose your assets, you may lose your money, you may lose anything and everything that you have created in this world, but one thing you'll never lose is your own mindset, is your own knowledge. The knowledge you've gained from these books is always going to stay with you until your dying day. So that is the biggest asset you can have. In fact, there's a quote which says that if you want to double your income, increase your investment in yourself by 3 times. And I think books make the best investments because you learn about so many subjects. You don't have to be stuck with a particular subject. You can you may be a doctor who's reading about about psychology, who's reading about law, who's reading history. You may be a person who is from an English literature background talking about psychology. And, there's so much to learn from these books. There is just no end to the kind of subjects you can study. And, it reminds me of this fantastic placard I received when I was in grade 7 in school, and it was my birthday party. And my brother gifted me this beautiful placard which read, "Don't let school interfere with your education." And I think that's what books do. They take you away from the traditional education system and open the world out for you, open your mind. People who read have a very, very open mindset about things. Their ambition levels, their vision is completely different. And if these reasons are not enough, let me share some statistics here. 75% of the world's self-made multi-millionaires read on an average 2 books a month. And I'm saying, on an average. So there are people who read much more. There are people who read a book a week. There are people who read 2 books a week. So we're just saying that, it's not that, if you're not a reader, get started with 5 pages a day, increase it to 10 pages a day. And I think an average book is about 300 pages. So if you did 10 pages a day, you would be completing a book a month. That's 12 books in a year. And I think it'll be amazing because there is so much you can gain out of that. And you should read all kinds of books. You can read different subjects. You can also read books in pairs. So 2 people who were friends who lived around the same time, who did great things, you can read their biographies together. You can read, period books if you're reading, the certain kind of periods together. You can read the Renaissance movement and, the other things that were happening around the same time. You can read books around that. So what happens is you also develop a trail in your mind as to, oh, the history was moving like this. Okay, this happened. This person did this and the other person did that. And, you get kind of, so to say, a different analogy, a different analysis in your own head about it. So yeah, and since we're talking about books, let me share, some of my favorite books. One of my favorite books is The World's Greatest Comebacks. And I think that is a book I read which inspired me that I could also have a comeback. Another book is Many Master, Many Lives, which is again a very big favorite of mine. Another one, as I said, 5 Love Languages. Amazing book to understand, how, what your spouse wants, or what your partner or lover wants, what your children want, what your parents want. How do they understand love, and how do you understand love, and understanding yourself and others, and giving it in a way that they would accept it, acknowledge it. Personality Plus, which is a fantastic book, which basically divides people into 4 personality types, and of course it says you're a combination of more than 2, at least more than 1 for sure, and sometimes 2 and 3, and you have traits of all those 4 personality types, but depends on which ones is your center of gravity at. So you can have more insight on that. So that is another book you could read. I mean, there's so many out there. And, there's another book called Mindset. And what I learned from Mindset was a very fabulous lesson. I used to believe that, especially if you've done well for yourself academically, you believe you're born intelligent. That's the impression you're given as a child, which also means as a corollary that if you're not good at something, that you cannot get good at. Because if you come from a belief that says you're born intelligent, that means that if you couldn't get something right, means you don't have it in you to get it right. But this book taught me that, there are people with 2 kinds of mindsets, fixed mindset and growth mindset. And fixed mindset people believe that, no growth is possible. So you're born the way you are and you got to live with it till you die. And people with the growth mindset believe that you can learn skills. Everything is a learnable skill. So that was a fantastic insight for me. And I learned so many things which I thought I never knew post that book. Another great book for me was Slight Edge. It's not that I didn't know the principles of daily compounding or, doing things on a daily basis which work well for you. But I think this particular book taught me that if you did small things on a daily basis, the compound effect of that is so high, so magnificent, that you can create whatever you want in a decade's time. I mean, literally, like a decade is huge. You can turn your whole life around. And that's exactly what I did for myself as well. Given the fact that 2007 is when I went into depression, 2017, I'm standing here talking to you, and, it's been a fabulous journey. And the other book which I really, really like, and so, I'm having to look up because I'm thinking, is Grit. It's a very recent book and I really love it because Grit is another book which says that talent is overrated and the efforts we put in, the ability to hustle or work hard is twice as more important than grit, and that's a fabulous research done on that. So there are plenty of books to be read, and of course there's Queen of the Comeback, my book, in which you can get a lot of insight. It's a very interestingly written book. It's got a lot of QR codes, a lot of blogs attached to it, a lot of workbook kind of sheets attached with it, which you can download from my website once you have the book in your hand. It's got 7 stories of different people. You can get into their mindset and get a sneak peek into their experience, which is very valuable. And of course, all the extracts from these 300 self-help books that I read, you will find glimpses of that in the whole book, and you will literally get the nuggets out of, every good book has 1 or 2 good thoughts, but the feedback I receive from my audiences is that every page they get a breakthrough in this book. So, it'll be very good for you to get it. The book is called The Queen of the Comeback, and of course it's available on Amazon.in, so you can go get your copy. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share. That's a little bit insight on from somebody who never read a book to, what it took to start reading and how it completely transformed my life, and, what it did for me, and of course what it can do for you. And yeah, that's all I wanted to share today in this FB Live. So if there's anything that you'd like to ask about books, around books, I'd be very happy to answer. Thank you, Preeti. That's really sweet. Thank you so much. Jacket, it doesn't matter if it takes you 2 to 3 times to understand simple things. Trust me, I was such a slow reader to begin with, but over a period of time, if you read consistently, you'll develop speed. And, another thing I want to say as an input is every time you get stuck with a word in the book, do not hesitate to pick up the dictionary to read it. Because what happens is if there is a little loop left in your brain where you don't understand something and you try to read further, you'll get sleepy. So it's very important that you read a book always with a dictionary. But if you're reading my book, you won't need a dictionary. My English isn't that great, so it's literally the way I talk is the way the book has been written. So, but if you're ever reading a book and you need a dictionary, please sit with it. Don't skip words that you don't understand, because it'll put your brain into a question mode and you lose your energy around the book and you'll feel sleepy. For sure, Parivesh, I will share the book names on my FB page. Don't worry about that. In fact, if you grab a copy of my book, I've listed recommended readings at the end of it, almost some 25-50 titles, which are my favorite. And you can always get a copy of that as well. If there's anything you guys would like to ask, I'll be very happy and delighted to answer. Thank you, Preeti. Yeah, spoken English for sure. We do well with it. That's really sweet. Thank you. Awesome. I'm hoping if somebody has a question, but even if they don't, all I want to say is, I don't know if you're watching this video while it's live or you're watching a recording of it, but all I want to say is, it's incredible that you are here, and it's always my favorite time of the week, Tuesday evenings, 5 p.m. to spend this time with you. Hi, Priyanka. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much. Jacket, books on business growth. Yeah, there are plenty of them. Try to get some from John Maxwell. That's another, great author. And if you want to read John's book, Begin Why, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, that's a fantastic book. Another great book for you would be Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And I think another one of John's book which may be helpful is Failing Forward, which again is, because a lot of times we believe that millionaires or billionaires have not had their share of downfalls. But John writes in his book that an average successful person goes through 3.2 disastrous failures. So a lot of people get scared when there's failure, but the way I look at failures is, after reading that book, is that, oh, I have failed means I'm closer to my success. So amazing books available around that. Another great book to read is T. Harv Eker's Millionaire Mind. I think that's a very, very nice book around money. Of course, you have Tony Robbins' book around money as well, which is very, very nice. So definitely grab your copies of all these books, and definitely grab your copy of The Queen of the Comeback. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And thank you so much for being with me this Tuesday evening. And I look forward to catching up with you next Tuesday evening at 5 p.m. Until then, I wish you a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful week ahead. I love you guys. I will see you next Tuesday. Thank you so much for being there for me on the other side of FB Live.